Shinn hydrofoil. Effortless, smooth and direct. There's three words that come to mind when I think of Mr. Shinn's new hydrofoil range. Hello, I'm Mike Burt, and in this vid we're going to take a closer look at Shinn's Superhydro range and also a peek at the Supraglide 2. Superhydro is Shinn's main foil range spanning wing, prone and kite foil, all based on a new universal fuselage that now underpins every foil product he makes. Gone are the long-established kite foil products from last year like the P-Wing, the K2 and the Mega K, and it's all replaced by one chassis this year, making life a lot simpler and a lot more adaptable too. As you may already know, this fuselage looks similar to last year's, but it has a new series of rear stabs, a new mounting there, and a new front wing angle too. It sounds marginal, but the difference is quite dramatic. So it's this new fuselage version, the Fuser, that we're going to be basing this video around. Now the blurb says, somewhat perhaps simplistically, equal attention to performance and ease of use. Perhaps a throwaway marketing line, but in this case actually surprisingly accurate. They're designed to be, and indeed are, performant, but really very easy to use. Now, hydrofoils are a hugely complicated thing, and the more I know, the more I realise how much more there is to know. And Shinn being Shinn, well, the complexity of the tech inside this foil system is enormous. So for the sake of brevity, I'm going to stick to the critical stuff of what they're good at and how they feel. All foils have a character, and the Superhydro series is no exception. In fact, they're one of the most unique out there. Part of that comes through their wing shaping, but a large part of it comes from their engineering, which is far from generic stuff. To quantify that, let's have a look at their party piece, stiffness. Now, Shinn has an obsession with stiffness, and he's quite a big, strong guy. So when he figured out that more stiffness gave him more feedback and control, he threw the physics book at it, and I dare say a fair slice of his research budget too. Out went the old kite fuselage he'd been using, and in came this new one, the Fuser. It's got a really beefy front section to it here, a lot of strength linking the front wing to the mast. Then the carbon mast came, and it is a monster, 18 mil thick, and it's wide too. Look at the width on that thing. Outside it's laminated in a 45-degree spread toe biax, and inside there's a great deal of buttressing to really make sure that its girth is put to good use. Now the lateral stiffness is extremely impressive, but even more so is the torsional stiffness. When you bolt it down and twist it, the stiffness that way is just mind-blowing. It's frankly unbelievable compared to everything else on the market. And that stiffness, you definitely feel it on the water. It brings a character to these setups that makes them incredibly direct. They are exceptionally rigid, and this is a standout character of how they ride, really tight and really connected. The other thing that the Superhydro sets itself apart is the wing shape and the profiles. Now, they are quite different from the vast majority of foils out there in that the shaping of the front wing uses a profile that he's sworn by for some time. It's got a comparatively flat undercamber and a fair bit of thickness on top. As such, they're really quite powerful and have extremely early takeoff for their size. When lift comes in, it's early and there's plenty of it, and they lift easily and controllably at very, very low speeds. The Superhydros do well on bigger boards and boards that don't have a great deal of sub-foiling glide. They punch sticky boards out at comparatively very low speeds. The other party piece they have is stall resistance. Now, I've never used any other foil that's quite so hard to stall. For something that lifts so early, it's quite frantically absurd how you have to really almost stop it to stall it out. And it's not like the lift just goes, it gives so much warning that you actively have to force the thing to crash. The big wings like the 1950 and 2250, that was the 1400 in that clip, are hard to stall even when you try. The new fuselage this year changed the front wing angle, which has a profound effect on the bigger wings. They're much faster in a straight line with a huge amount of glide. Knowing last year's system well, it's pretty radical just how much difference this has made. Around the corners, for the straight line ability and fairly high aspect ratio, they are surprisingly compliant when you start to really throw them around. In fact, it's a very capable carving foil if you grab it by the scruff of the neck, and forgiving too. Have a look at this tack. Now, I overfoiled this halfway round, completely cavitated most of the front wing, and as yet you see, still it rides away. They do like a firm hand though, which is good from an intermediate's point of view, because you either do it or you don't do it. They tend to ignore the timid inputs, which is a good thing if you still have a few wobbles going on. They are also fantastic for tacking. Even with moderate entry speeds, they have such good glide and store resistance that they're by far and above the easiest foils to push through the eye of the wind. I often find myself pausing, just taking a breath in admiration at just how long these things keep going. It makes learning maneuvers, very easy and non-aggressive. Being quite long wings, you can stick a tip out every now and then, even a full wing, to be honest, at slower speeds. And they seem able to reattach the flow pretty easily. They're very compliant. So as far as front wing sizing goes, the Superhydros go from 720 to 2250. Now the 2250 is massive. The 1650 is still very meaty. This is it here as an all-round wing. 1200 is a real sweet spot. So my tip would be learn on a 1950 and then get the 1200 as a high performance drop down. The 1950 goes really early and still very relevant for expert light wind use. The 1200 is just a beautiful place to be, riding swells and just generally enjoying that sweet spot in the range. It's that magic triangle between speed, glide and carving, but it still retains a ton of store protection. Now the 950 is lively and the 720 even more so, if a bit less tolerant of slower speeds. Though these are fully wing foilable and good fun, they are also primarily, with the new P2 wing, this year's main kite foils. The construction of these front wings is unusual and well worth a mention. The front wings are crazy light and stiff, and when you hold it in your hand they do feel odd. It's the only hydrofoil I know that actually floats, so if you want it to lie flat on the deck of the water, you have to actively shove them down. They're made with a super light foam cord, the CNC'd, and a skin of multi-directional carbon cloth. Now it's extremely strong, stiff and light, and though it doesn't have a pretty pattern on it, do not be fooled, it is a pure carbon skin. Now a word on foot pressure. I find that we all have a preferential amount of front foot pressure versus rear. For me, it's the one fundamental thing that I have to dial in to set up any foil for my own personal riding style. Last year I had to use the smaller stab, and oddly this year I have to use the biggest. So it's quite a big switch around between old and new years. The 4 stabs come in 2 versions. We have the curved tip variety, which brings the most yaw stability but the cost of a bit of drag, which is why we have also the flat one. Talking of the new fuselage, the new shorter fuselage has an additional mounting point up from 2 to 3. This new position all the way at the front is for kite foiling. This position is needed to balance the smaller wings, as kite foil operates at much higher speeds generally than wing and prone. The other thing to mention is that if you already have an older Superhydro system, this new fuselage with the new stabilizer that goes with it brings a significant performance gain, much more speed, less front foot pressure and way more glide. So if you want an upgrade to last year's system, well, this really worth considering. Lastly, I want to touch on the Supraglide. Now, there is a trend at the moment chasing really high aspect wings, and the Supraglide is certainly that. Undoubtedly, it's a good looking bit of kit, thin, a full spread toe carbon finish with crazy high aspect ratio. I think this is 9.3 if you like your numbers. In comparison to the Superhydro, it has effortless speed, and once you get it going, the efficiency is through the roof, which is remarkable considering the Superhydro's gains this year. It's straight up to full speed with only tiny amounts of power, so it doesn't take a lot of swell to really push it on. But in truth, not until you use something as purist as this do you realise how usable the Superhydro is at everything else. It is the wing to build the core of your foil set from, in my opinion. By contrast, the Supraglide, it needs the conditions, the riding style and the skill to justify what you lose in the plug-and-play ease of Superhydro. This then is an unapologetic purist front wing, so feel free to expand your quiver with the efficiency and speed that this thing offers, but in truth, the Superhydro is the wing that I choose to ride the vast majority of time. That said, every time I put this thing out of the bag, it does make me smile. The mid-range acceleration and efficiency is just crazy, but then I'll go in eventually and get the 1200 Superhydro and throw some power at the thing, go hack around some corners. The last few things to mention then, the bolt pattern on the mastheads is the standard Euro 16.5 by 9 centimeters. Also, the engineering underpinnings of this range, so the mast and the fuselage, they're now set in stone for the next few years, and this is an important point for knowing what is like. There for sure will be a treasure trove of goodies to bolt on as the seasons progress. You can find a retail pricing structure for all of the different components on our website, link down below in the bio, and this is the pricing structure that the UK dealers will use as a baseline. There's also an alloy mast option to bring the price down too. You don't have to spec it with this carbon mast. And also all the wings and all the carbon masts come with covers, and there is an optional foil bag which you see behind me here if you want it. So there you have it. If you would like any specific questions answering, please leave a comment below, and as always, here's me wishing you an epic season on the water, and thanks sincerely for watching.